Hey, Stux here. Today I'm going to answer some more questions that have been posted onto my Discord. Make sure to join the Discord down in the description. You can post your questions into the hashtag AskStuxAnything channel. So far, in the over a year that I have had that channel, I've been able to answer every single question, and I don't plan on breaking that streak anytime soon. Simply ping me in there. I'm going to get right back to you when the best questions actually make it into these videos. So the first question is by Harris again, and he asks, Tier 3, would you recommend giving your players a form of homework that they complete outside of scrims? For example, making notes on a POV in the Overwatch League viewer and having them compare with you to see what they may be misunderstanding. Now, you shouldn't necessarily give them homework. In the end, that is your job to do the homework outside of scrims and then present that to them, during VOD reviews, during scrims themselves. But you can give them goals to work on outside of scrims, and you can recommend them how to accomplish those goals, but you shouldn't give them specific homework. In the end, the players need to be aware of their issues. They need to figure out how they handle these issues themselves. You shouldn't really, force them into any particular way. Again, you can help them, you can give them recommendations, but how they solve those issues is their own responsibility. For example, if you have a Roadhog player, you can tell him that his hook accuracy or the value that we get out of hook has been very, very low. You can maybe tell him, hey, here's this really useful alt POV. If you want to have a look at it, look at how he plays Roadhog, look at how he gets value out of it. But this is something that we're going to have to monitor over the next few days in order to see if there are any improvements. We can, of course, help you with it, but we also have other construction sites that we need to be working on to make sure that you get to it. It's completely valid, right? You don't always have to really babysit your players, do continuous 1v1s. It's completely fine to give each player specific goals to work on, especially if you're the only coach on a team or if your staff isn't very large, you can't invest too much time. You won't always be able to do 6 one-on-ones every single day. So for the days where you can't do a 1v1 with the player, you still want to make sure that they have a goal, and if they're underperforming in one aspect of their kit, to tell them, this is how you could solve it if you wanted to, but in the end, it's up to the player. Now, again, if you have the spare resources, you want to work with your players directly to solve the issues, but if you don't have the resources, then telling them to fix something on their own is completely fine, but you shouldn't go and say, you have to watch this, make notes, you have until Thursday to give me those notes. That doesn't make a lot of sense. That's not really very, very motivating for the players, but you can say, hey, this aspect of your play has been very, very poor. If we don't see any improvements by Thursday, then we're going to have to see how we move forward from there. And that applies a lot of pressure to the player that can motivate them to improve. And hopefully come Thursday, they're going to have found their own way in order to address the issue and in order to improve. Now, the next question is by Draco, and he asks, I'm a person that travels a lot, so I can get rusty mechanically and my in-game decisions. Is there a way to possibly retain my mechanics and practice my game sense while away from home? Now, if your question is playing the game the only way to not get rusty, then the answer is yes. If you don't play the game, you're going to get rusty. There is no way around it. There is nothing that you can do. Now, rust is actually the main reason why a lot of players are complaining about their aim. They have reached a plateau in terms of their aim, and rust is actually the main core reason behind that plateau and why they aren't improving their aim anymore. So aim isn't just about total playtime. There are a lot of players that have played thousands of hours over, since release, but their aim is still very, very bad. And that's because while their total playtime is very, very good, the actual regular playtime that they put into the game each day or through the course of a week is very, very low. If a player, say, puts in, 5 hours a week since launch, then his aim is going to be really, really bad compared to someone that puts in, let's say 15 hours a week, right? But who has been playing for only a couple of months. Because it's not just about the total amount of hours that you put into the game, it's also about how often you play frequently. How many hours you put in on a regular basis, saying the difference between playing 2 hours a day and 4 hours a day, is what actually defines your plateau. So if you feel like your aim isn't really going anywhere, then you should not get into the mindset of, hey, I don't really need to change anything, I just need to keep playing, and maybe a month or two from now I'm going to see improvements. That is not going to work. The actual aiming plateau that you're going to reach at each, time category that you're in, right? So if you play 15 hours a week, then you're going to be able to reach the plateau, the maximum amount of, aim quality that you can have rather quickly, right? And at that point, if you feel like your aim isn't improving, continuing to play the game isn't going to do a lot for you. You need to up that from maybe, from 15 hours to maybe 20 hours. And that way you're going to increase your aiming plateau, and now investing more time into the game, more total playtime, is going to have actual results on how well you aim. It's essentially about a balance between building rust and washing it off. right? So if you aren't playing a lot a week, then you're going to wash off a little bit of rust, right? But then you don't play for a while and all of that rust builds up and it builds up and it builds up. And the only way that your aim can actually improve is if you are completely clear of rust. But if you always stop playing the game before you've actually, gotten rid of all of the rust, you're not going to improve, no matter how often you do it. It's always this endless cycle. You don't play, you get rusty, you play the game, and then, the rust goes away and you get warm, and then you stop playing and you get rusty. And again, no matter how long you go through the cycle, you're not really going to see any improvements past a certain point. And the only way to really fix that is to increase the amount of time that you play, which means that you decrease the amount of time that you don't play. That's how you can fix rust. So simply said, if you want good aim, just play a lot. And if you can't play a lot, then I'm sorry, but unfortunately, you won't be able to compete with other players that can play a lot. The next question is by McCullough, and he asks, what are the biggest mistakes and misinterpretations mid-elo players make when they analyze their gameplay footage? There's 4 different mistakes, actually, if we would have to put into the category. The first one is overcomplication, right? They look at their game and they feel like the issue is some weird strategical mistake or some weird individual matchup that they don't understand. Especially when you're at a lower rating, the chances are that the mistakes are very, very obvious and that the mistakes are very, very straightforward and basic. You don't really get into very specific, complex issues until you get into team play, into top 500 play, where rotations and communication and really in-depth micro decisions become relevant. If you're at a lower rating, then the chances are that maybe your basic positioning just isn't as good. Or maybe you're wasting a lot of your ultimates, or you fundamentally don't understand how a certain character's kit works, and that's completely fine. But make sure that you don't look for issues where there are none, and make sure to accept that sometimes the issues you have are just very simple. The next one is blaming your teammates. If you're in a game, if you're doing a VOD review and you feel like, hey, we really would have won this team fight if my teammate didn't die, you're not going to get anywhere. Sure, sometimes your teammates make mistakes, but the only relevant question is there anything that I could have done to help my teammate? If there was nothing that you could have done, just move on. But maybe you're going to look at your kit and you feel like, maybe I could have dropped a biotic field for him. Maybe I was splitting too far. If I played it, with him, I could have been able to help him. Maybe the person that killed him is someone that I could have disrupted earlier, right? Or distracted. Maybe I'm not applying enough pressure. Those things are fine. But when you look at a teammate, don't always default to, oh my god, he died, that's why we lost the team fight. Ask yourself if there's something that you can do to help him. The third one, very simple, is aim. Low-ranked players tend to do VOD reviews and then just blame every single teamfight loss on them missing a certain amount of shots. I don't want to spend too much time on that. Aim is very, very rarely the issue. From my experience, if you're in bronze or silver, then blaming your mechanics is very, very valid. But at any rank above that, it is very, very rare that your mechanical ability is the main thing that's holding you back as a player. Now, the fourth thing is players thinking that something is out of their control. So again, we have the teammate example where they feel like, oh, this team fight was out of my control because my teammate made a mistake. Or for example, a Reaper jumping on them and then them feeling like, hey, there's nothing that I really could have done. That team fight was completely out of my control. Do not do that. If you're in a lower rating, pretty much every single reason why you're losing a game is in your control. The only exception is if someone from the game leaves. In that case, you can't really do much. It's a 5v6, but that doesn't really matter too much because statistically speaking, the chances of an enemy leaving are much higher than you leaving, unless obviously you are the person leaving, which ideally you shouldn't. And then the next question is by Blackmore 45. How important is good PC performance? I play on a laptop with 15 to 30 frames per second, and I'm currently in gold. How much should I blame my rank on my PC, and how much of a performance difference should an upgrade make? Also, how could I try to improve in my current situation? Very simple, 15 FPS is completely unacceptable. You can't really do much if you're playing at 15 FPS. 30 FPS is what I would generally regard as the absolute minimum. Just for reference, Philadelphia Fusion's player Ikio, there was actually a very nice article about it. He managed to reach top 500 on multiple accounts, even though he was playing on high ping, and he was playing at 30 FPS, and if he can do it, then, clearly everyone can do it if they put in the effort. It is very, very unpleasant to play at 30 FPS. It's not really that fun, but at that point, when you get a consistent 30 FPS, you can make it work. Now, once you reach the 60 FPS area, that's where you don't have any excuses. 144 Hz, 240 Hz monitors, they're very nice. They feel very nice. They can help with your eyes a lot, but you're not going to lose a game because you don't have a 144 Hz monitor. You're never going to get into a game with 60 FPS where you would have won that game if you had a 144 Hz monitor. That's just a really bad excuse. They're nice on the eyes, they make playing the game a little bit more fun, right? And I'm not saying that they don't give you an advantage, but that advantage is never going to really decide a match. Alright, that does it for this video. Make sure to follow me on Twitter down in the description, and you can join my Discord server. Again, post your questions into the hashtag AskStuxAnything channel. I'm going to get back to all of them, and some of them even make it into this video for more in-depth explanations. My name is Stux, and I'd like to thank you for learning.